Welcome to the Sens Spotlight podcast brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. Before we get started, bet the beauties with Betway and scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the detail section to create an account and download the app. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Betway is an official sponsor of your Ottawa Senators. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the show. That really helps us out. And hit that hype button on YouTube. The Senators had a huge game, winning 6-3. Great start, 4 goals in the first period for the first time all season. Dylan Cousins and Drake Batherson had 3 points in the first period. Tim Stutzle was a monster with 2 goals, and the Ridley Gregg, Claude Giroux, and Michael Amadio line was great too. So big win. Senators climbing up the standings again, and it should be fun. And once again, we'll chat with Pierre McGuire to run it all down. So hit it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Sens Spotlight.
Here's Alfredson, bursts the speed, gets a shot away, scores! Daniel Alfredson ends the game in overtime and sends the Ottawa Senators to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time in franchise history.
The sickest Ottawa Senators podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And once again, we are joined by Pierre McGuire. Just what were your initial thoughts on last night's game?
Phew.
Oh,
That was my initial thought. I'm like, okay, have a good start. They did. Make sure you're solid in the middle period. They were. And close it out wisely. And the only thing I'd say is they did that really well by outshooting Columbus almost 2-1 in the third period. So I thought that was good. Here's the thing that I didn't like. That was not an artistic impression game. Those are two teams that were struggling. Ottawa, that was their first win in 7 games. And for Columbus, that's 4 straight losses now. So those are two teams that are trying to find an identity. But when you play that kind of game, it's nobody's fault. You got to take advantage. It's still an opportunity to go up the standings. I love what you said, Alex. They got the points. They get an opportunity to move up the standings. So you don't worry about the artistic impression points. But Merzlikins wasn't very good.
No.
But Ottawa did a good job getting to the net. I'll cede them that. They did a good job of creating havoc. I'll cede them that. I can tell you one thing. Dean Evison will blow a gasket today.
they were so bad.
In-zone coverage was so bad. It was so bad. So everybody like, what system works the best? That's what people say around the league. What should we do in zone coverage? Should we play the dice box and one? Should we play man-to-man? Should we play a modified man-to-man? What should we do? So I'll tell you why man-to-man doesn't work. Go watch Columbus play man-to-man last night. If every guy's not working and every guy's not skating, that's what happens.
Yep.
They ring you up like a Roman candle, and that's exactly what Ottawa did to them.
Yeah, I mean, Ottawa was they were pretty bad on their own end at times. But I think what you mentioned, what was good about that win was just the way they played in the third period. They were really good defensively. That second period, I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. And like that, how you were feeling, I was like, this is going to be a tough podcast the next day with Pierre if they blow this lead to 3-goal leads. But they were able to find a way to win. And I thought their first and third periods were great. That second period, they've been struggling of late in those second periods. I don't know why it is necessarily. I think they're not the fastest team. And I think in transition with the long change, they get kind of found out a little bit. That's my educated guess.
Like that. I think there's a lot of merit to that. I also think some of the guys overextend their shifts. And I think that's something the coach can implement a different kind of ideology on as they go forward. 2 huge moments in the game. Amadio's goal at the end of the first, with a minute to go, and Stutzle's goal at the end of the second with a little over 2 minutes to go, like 2 minutes and a second. When you give up 2 goals like that, if you're Columbus at the end of a period and you do it twice in one game, you're not winning. I don't care how good your team, you're not winning. And so to Ottawa's credit, they did that. They scored at the end of 2 periods, and it made a difference going into the third.
Yeah, and Tim Stutzle stayed on the ice for a long time on that goal.
Yes, he did.
He wanted to make an impact, and he did. And I thought he played really, really well last night. It always feels like he just wants to will it to happen, and sometimes it happens, and he has 2 goals, and sometimes he doesn't, right? But he was unbelievable. I thought that line wasn't great, but he played really well. And I thought in the third period, like Kachuk, you could kind of see his legs coming into him, and that's a good sign. And we'll see how that goes. But maybe the one thing that I was just that first period was just the way Dylan Cousins was playing. I thought he was
that was his best 5-on-5 game in a long time.
first time as a Senator he's had 2 5-on-5 points in the same game.
See, I didn't know that, but I'm just telling you, that's a great catch by you, Alex. I didn't know that, but I'm watching him going, this guy's moving tonight. 5-on-5, he wants to compete. He's jumping for the puck. He's demanding the puck. He wants to be a difference maker, and he was. I'm going to give David Perron a lot of credit. I mean, he scores a goal. It's an ugly goal, but he still scores it because he goes to where you got to go to. But, and Drake off the rush, a lot of it's Dylan, making the play. But I can say this. It's not Ottawa's fault. I haven't seen Merzlikins be that leaky, and he was bad. Like the whole – I don't know what happened to Columbus because usually – I think we talked about this the last show. They're a hard out at home. They might not be as hard on the road, but at home, they're a hard out, and they were not a hard out last night. So good for Ottawa for taking advantage of that.
I saw that it was their first home regulation loss in like their last 8 or something. So
there's
impressive. And Ottawa does not do well in Columbus. I should have checked the all-time stats, but they don't do well. Like even last year, they could clinch the playoffs with a win in Columbus, and they lost like 7-1 or 6-2, and they still made it because of Montreal, I think, losing a game. So yeah, Columbus has not been kind to the Senators, but it was last night, thankfully. And I just think Dylan Cousins, for this team to take that step up, he's the X factor, especially with Pinto hurt. He has 6 points in his last 4 games with Pinto out. Like that's what they need from Dylan Cousins, and it's a good sign. And I was talking to him in the locker room. Days, I always forget what day we are, but I think it's Wednesday.
It's an NHL season. I get it. Don't worry.
Exactly.
They all roll into one. I get it.
And I was asking him about his like defensive play and plus minus, and he said something interesting. He's like, I feel like I've actually played pretty well defensively. Just the fact of the matter is my line hasn't been scoring at 5-on-5. Thus, I have a minus, 12. It's not because I'm that bad defensively. It's because we haven't been scoring goals, right? So every time I'm on the ice, which is an interesting kind of parallel, and I thought he has been better defensively of late. So I know Green likes him and Batherson together, and definitely he's probably going to like them a little bit more after last night as well.
What did he think of Zetterlund last night?
I thought like that first goal, obviously he makes the intercept. I actually didn't feel like it was a terrible play. What I didn't like was him and Kachuk. Zetterlund makes that play on the first Columbus goal. He makes a good back check and just like tries to clear it, goes right on a stick, but he kind of just stops and is like, oh shoot. And I'm like, buddy, just keep skating. Like, what are we doing here? And then TSN had the long angle of the view, and Kachuk's just wasting in his own end, and then eventually speeds up and then misses Boone Jenner on the back door. Like Travis Green must have had just a field day. And it was interesting to begin the third period. I don't know if you caught this. He was going at Kachuk a little bit on the bench.
I did not. So what I do is I have a wall here of TVs. So last night I had Montreal going, and that with Pittsburgh, and that was a late start, 7:30. I had Toronto and San Jose. That went to overtime. And I had Ottawa and Columbus. So I've got all of them right there. And I'm watching it, and I'm going, okay. And I don't ever watch with the sound up just because it would be too crazy. So I'm watching. So once I see the plays kind of stopped, I kind of focus on the other ones. So I did not see that, to be fair.
Yeah, it was like briefly, like Kachuk kind of smiled it off, but Green was going at him. I think it was a coverage, like, and then he like changed them within like the first 20 seconds of the third period. So definitely interesting. I did think that line in parts, you could see how Zetterlund, Kachuk were really good on the walls, kind of finding Stutzle kind of out in the middle and kind of playing really well just in the offensive zone. Yeah. The one thing I'm kind of curious for you, just as someone that's coached, been around the game for a long time, and I was speaking of talking to Dylan Cousins before, he was talking about how in Buffalo, like a lot of times they didn't have the puck a lot, so when he'd get offense, it'd be in transition. But now he's trying to work on his offensive game kind of just on the walls, kind of just in the ozone, like when you're just cycling, trying to kind of pick apart the defenses. And like, how important is that skill, and how do you coach that? And it felt like the Sens were really good at that last night with a bunch of their goals, from the Amadio goal to the Stutzle goal, etc.
You work on it in practice. So you run a low cycle, you run a high cycle, you run a net cycle. So I used to call them reference points. So let's say you say to your team, you have everybody does it their own way, but you have everybody as forwards anyways in the high slot. And you say, okay, Alex, your line's up, and run a left corner cycle with a high pick. So you do that, bing, 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 puck to the net. Then you go to the next side because you want to keep the ice clean. You want to keep the practice flowing. Then you say, run a reference point cycle to the net for the next line. McGuire, your line. And so you put the puck in the corner. You got to gain the net. You got to cycle the net. So you practice that, and it doesn't take long. You can do that 7 to 12 minutes in a practice every day. The players kind of like it because eventually the puck ends up on the net. Everybody gets a chance to score, and they're always touching the puck. And players like to go crossovers rather than go straight ahead. If you ever watch them practice, they like it when they're crossing over more than when they're going straight ahead. So you can practice that every day. And I also know, and again, everybody's coaching methods are different, but board play matters a lot, and you got to practice board play. And some teams practice it with one-on-ones all over the ice with pucks going all over the boards. I saw Ken Hitchcock do that in St. Louis a lot. I saw him do it in Columbus a lot, and their teams were pretty good on the boards. We used to practice board play a lot when I was coaching in Pittsburgh when I was an assistant, because we had guys like Kevin Stevens and Joey Mullen and Troy Loney who were bigger guys, except for Joey. But Joey was the king of the chip outs. There was no player, I'm telling you right now, in NHL history that could get the puck in his feet on the boards. And he was a right-hand shot. A lot of times he played on the left wing, and he could chip the puck out. It was unbelievable how good he was at it. We would work on these things all the time. And it really, you can get better at that, but especially to your point on Dylan Cousins, managing offense or manufacturing offense in the offensive zone, you just got to work on it every day.
Yeah, no, for sure. And what do you make of this stat? Because I find it the most baffling stat. I think you probably know where I'm going with this. The Senators are 7-1-2 with Curtis McDermott in the lineup.
I read that this morning, and good for him. But I mean, if you're playing less than 4 minutes a game, or even 5 minutes a game, I'm not sure that stat merits a lot of. I think it's just a statistical anomaly.
Yeah, I mean, you can say, like, I was thinking, like, what are the reasons? The only thing I can really surmise is the fact of the matter is even last game they lost Eller, and we're unsure when he'll be back, if he'll be back, what his timeline is. But basically have 3 lines, so you have your best players playing more often. That, should make you a better team. At the same time, what you've talked about before, you're going to wear out if you're playing your guys too much. And it feels like the Senators had that a little bit in that stretch prior to last night.
I agree with that. So here's another thing that I know, and it's from a good team. John Cooper and the guys in Tampa, they were doing this a while ago. And it was a big thing at the time. They were playing 11-7, 11 forwards, 7D. And the reason why they were doing that, they wanted, to your point, Alex, which is a really fruitful and smart point, they wanted to get their guys, their star players, Kucherov, Stamkos, Point, Cirelli, all those guys, they wanted them to get more ice time, more touches. And they felt that if they got more touches and more ice time, they would get more power play time. Because in this league, if you put a stick on a star, or you trip a star, or you interfere with a star, you're getting a penalty. So they felt in their minds in Tampa, the more they did that. Now we're going back to like 2015, 2016. It's almost a decade ago. But they really started that craze of 11-7. And then other teams started to follow it. It's easier, I think, it's easier to manage 7D than it is to manage 12 forwards. Because the 12 forwards are going to get stale. Because your bottom 2 or 3 guys aren't going to play a lot. And when they do, I'll give you an example. Last night, I saw a team put their 4th line on the ice after they scored a big goal, and the puck ends up at the back of their net. And I'm sure their coach is going, what the frick did I just do? I can't believe I did that. especially when you're on the road and you know the other team's going to load up with their top line when they see your depth players on. So I'm sure that coach, and I'm not going to pick on him today because it's not worth it, but he won't do that again. He won't do that again.
And I think what's interesting about McDermott is like coaches, like they like what works no matter what's happening, right? And
It's true.
I just, I don't. It's kind of like the Sens are 3-8 with Tkachuk in the lineup, right? I don't think that's really reflective of Brady Tkachuk's impact on the team. I feel the same way in the opposite direction with Curtis McDermott, but I'd be surprised if he's not in Minnesota playing just because of.
Yeah, I would agree, and I'll tell you why too. They've got some rough guys there in Minnesota. Hartman's a guy now, different weight category, but Hartman fights everybody. If healthy, Marcus Foligno, he's a nasty piece of business. They got some jam there, and Middleton's hurt right now, but if Middleton's healthy, he can drop and go. So you need to have a deterrent when you go in there. You do. And that's what I would consider McDermott to be. I'm happy for him. I told you the story. His father was a really good player in the league. His dad was tough as nails, and he was strong. A lot of people thought at the time when his dad was just coming in the league that he was as strong as any player physically. I'm talking physically, as strong as any player in the league physically. I got a lot of respect for that kid and the journey that he's been on just to establish himself as an NHL player. Those are a lot of hard miles that he's put in.
And Curtis McDermott, a huge guy. I'm a pretty big guy, not nearly as big as Curtis McDermott, I'll tell you that. But from your perspective, just transitioning a little bit to the game, and I thought Ridley Gregg had a really good game last night. And Travis Green post game said, I thought this was one of his best games. Just feeling like he was skating a bit better, and that line was just really effective. Basically, producing 2 goals last night, or 3, I guess, with the empty netter.
Yeah, it was really good though, and this is to your point. I love what you just said. At the end of the game, when it mattered most, Ridley Gregg was on the ice for a face-off. He wins the face-off. The other team's got the goalie pulled, and Drew ends up scoring into the empty net. The coach is patting him on the back. The coach is telling him, go out and get the job done. In years past, who might have been taking that draw, especially on that side of the ice? That might have been Brady Tkachuk.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. Yeah. It was not Brady. It was Ridley Gregg. I'm watching, again, these are the subtleties of the game. Some people want to listen to them. Some people think they're garbage. They matter. When you're Ridley Gregg, and I know points matter, but in that situation, points don't matter. It's what the coach showed you. It's street cred in an NHL dressing room. The coach counted on me in a big moment to deliver, and I did. Did. And the coach loves it, and the player loves it, and his teammates know that the coach put him out there.
For sure. And I think with that line, to see them have a little bit of offense since Pinto's been good, I think that's really important for this team because they have been struggling to score at 5-on-5. Yeah. Pinto's such a huge loss, and obviously Gregg isn't as good as Shane Pinto. I don't think he's that close.
He's not as big.
But at the same time, if he can kind of like Dylan Cousins, just elevate his game a little bit, bring a little bit more jam, bring a little bit more offense, just play a little bit better. That's what the team needs, right? Is that they always say next man up mentality. I'm not going to say it again, but it is important. And I think just seeing that is something that you get a little bit more positivity for this team moving forward without Pinto for the next couple weeks, right? Is okay. If that line can produce, you feel good. The other thing, just on Amadio, I was talking to him in the dressing room this week, and I was saying, it seems like you always score in bunches. And he's like, yeah, it's like, I just want to be consistent. Like he was almost saying, he had that 4 goals in 4 straight games. Yeah, he had a point, right? And last year he had a similar thing. And so hopefully this means that he's going to go on another goal streak or point streak, because I thought he played really, really well last night.
It might have been since Shane's got, well, no, for sure since Shane's gone out, but I'm going to say that might have been one of his best games of the year. And when I look at the games, I don't look at the points or the assists. I look at how you're influencing the outcome of the game. If you didn't score, were you a positive or negative influence on the game? Mm-hmm. So when Artem Zub, I'll use Zuby as an example. I know he's a defenseman, not a forward.
Zub.
Yeah, when Zuby's not scoring, he can influence the outcome of the game. It's a big shot block. It's a big physical play. It's a big stand at the offensive or defensive blue line. It's gap control in the neutral zone in a wise way, not an over-aggressive way. Like Zuby's one of those players, if you watch him enough, you appreciate the subtleties of his game. And then with Jake, it's kind of the same thing, except where Jake separates himself from almost every player in the league is he can still quantify the game by getting points. So it just, you know what I mean? Like every guy's got a different thing. Cleven's never going to be the point guy.
No.
But Cleven's going to have to find a way to be Chris Pronger light. He's going to have to be that guy that stabilizes the game physically, makes a good first pass, kills penalties, and doesn't take a ton of penalties. So that's the characteristic he has to have. And there's a place called Harry's in Grand Forks, North Dakota. It's a pretty legitimate steakhouse. It's actually better than pretty. It's really good. And I took Tyler there a lot. I took him there a lot. And Jake was there a couple times with us too. And I used to tell Tyler that, this is how we kind of envision you as a player. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. And, I know young players all get caught up on points because that's kind of the cool thing on all the different social media things. It's how many points you get. He doesn't need to get points to help the team win. He does not.
It's funny. I was talking to him a couple of weeks ago, and I said, like, I'm always curious about players and sticks and skates and their routine. So I always kind of, hey, like, how long have you had the stick? Anyways. And he said something really funny to me. He said, as a defenseman, if my stick isn't, if I'm not playing well and I don't change my stick because I know it's not the stick's fault, it's my fault. And I thought him and Spence were a bit better last night.
There was one sequence where they had a tough sequence, and it ended up in the back of the net. But that was about it. I would say they were, compared to the last game, they were much more reliable. So yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah. But again, let's be positive a little bit.
I want to be. I'm encouraged. They're going into Minnesota on a high. Then they have to. Minnesota had a big win last night against Dallas. And for most of that game, Minnesota was large and in charge in that game. For those that didn't watch it, I can just tell you, like, Minnesota controlled huge swaths of that game. Huge swaths.
And I think for the Senators, again, I remember last year they went into Minnesota and they're struggling, they're banged up, and they kind of found a way to eke out. I think it was a 3-1 win. I was on World Juniors duty, so I wasn't as locked in. It was like during the game. So there's actually a picture of me that Julian McKenzie posted, and I'm like losing my mind because the Wi-Fi wasn't working in the stream. Anyways, but I do feel the Senators need to, in a sense, that's the game. If they can even get a point, just get something from that game. You go into Winnipeg, they're really free falling.
You're probably getting Hellebuck.
Yeah, I hope not. I hope not. But yeah, if they do. But even then, the Jets have been struggling, and they're not. If you look at their analytics, they're like Hellebuck.
There's something wrong there. I'm not. You know what, Scotty Arneal's somebody. I wouldn't call him a friend. I'd call him a very good acquaintance. Very good hockey acquaintance. I like him a lot. I think he's a really smart hockey guy. Something's wrong internally there. Like, I'm not saying there's a culture problem. I'm not saying there's an attitude problem. Something's wrong, whether there's a lack of depth, whether there's some guys on the wrong side in terms of their birth certificates, age-wise. Something's wrong. It's not the same team as it was a year ago. It is not the same team.
Not at all. I also just think they're not that good, and they lost Ehlers. And anyways, I had pitches of the Senators.
Good portions of last year, though. He was hurt a lot.
A little bit, yeah. But he drove that team. But getting back to the
good player, I agree.
To the Senators, I think the one thing I've also liked is I thought Manpalo and Jensen, the weirdest combination. Like, who would have told you that would have been Ottawa's a pairing for the Senators this season? I think they've been pretty good this year. I think Manpalo's been really. He's big, mean, physical, is a great skater. Obviously, on the puck, he doesn't really do much, but it's interesting to see how he's played on his offside. And I thought Jensen's played a bit better the past couple of games. You feel like he's getting his legs underneath him a little bit more.
I like that. I think that's great that you're acknowledging that, especially with Nick, who's been around so long. The thing about Montemapalo is I'm watching him play, and then I watch the Florida Panthers so much, and I see Nico Mikkola, and I'm like, why can't Montemapalo be like that? And I think he can, actually. And that's a heck of a player. Like, you can win with that guy as a depth player or as a number 5 on your team, or maybe as some nights number 4, but mostly a 5 and a 6. You can win if they have the same characteristics as the guy down in Florida. So look, there's a lot more positive than negative in this game. If I were Dean Evison, I would not be very excited about my team. If I were, obviously Travis Green, I'd be very positive about my team going into Minnesota. I'd be excited about my team. I would be.
Yeah. And the other thing is their power play looks much better. And
power play does. I don't know if you agree with me. I can't stand the passive penalty kill.
Oh man, you and me both, man.
It's wearing me out, Alex. It's wearing me out. I watch all the the Buffalo Sabres are right at the top of the league in a penalty kill. They are.
Yeah.
They don't sit back. They are in full attack mode.
That goal, people were blaming Allmark on that goal. I'm like, what the heck? He played the shot. It wasn't going in. A guy taps it in. That is not his.
Jake lost body position.
But look at it. They're making so many reads. That's the thing I don't like about the PK is if you make one bad read, it's in the back of your net. It's that's not a way to have a successful penalty kill, right? If you're just aggressive on them, okay, you might get burned, but you're just going to get back. And I just think for them, they need to go back to a box. I just
might not be established pressure points. And so everybody's got to be singing from the same songbook. And I'll tell you who is really good at this. And I mean this sincerely. When I was, working in the league all the time and being in different rinks every day, I watched Barry Melrose and his team down in Adirondack. That was Detroit's top farm team at the time. It was just before Barry left there to go to LA. And he was considered one of the really smart and up-and-coming guys. If you go watch their penalty kill back in the day, I'm just telling you, they were at another level compared to everybody else. They were at a whole other level. And LA was the same kind of thing. And a lot of teams started copying them, being aggressive, establishing pressure points, and not giving star players time and space to make plays. I don't know how everybody got in love with this diamond thing, but no. You can switch it up. I coached a lot of good penalty killing groups. You can switch it up. One time you can show them. It's like camouflaging a coverage in football. You can do that. We used to do it. Some nights we'd be in a diamond, and then boom, we'd switch into an aggressive, penalty kill with a box. We could switch all the time, and it was different, like a different signal. If I went like this, we were going to be hard. If I went like this, we were going to kind of chill out. So there were different. If I went like this, it meant we clear the zone. Everybody gets off. Come to home base. So we had all these different signs, and I know people.
I didn't know you were a third base coach.
Yeah. Well, that too. That's what you do that, especially when your team is a little bit better and guys can grasp the concepts. And I think the team is good enough in Ottawa that they can grasp some different concepts.
I know internally they feel like they don't have enough natural penalty killers. And obviously you lose Pinto, who's by far your best penalty killer. That's a big loss. I still think you talk about the system, and I do think the system's at fault for a significant portion of why this team has been struggling on the PK.
Yep.
Whatever system you throw at, you need to be more aggressive. I will never be okay with the idea of giving good players time and space to make plays. If they beat you backdoor because you're over aggressive, I'd rather that 10 times out of 10 than being beat because we're giving Marchenko 4 seconds to pick a pass for a tap-in. Maybe the stats tell it's interesting, and even last night the Sens stats, in terms of expected goals, everything, were pretty low on the PK. They're one of the best expected goals teams, in terms of lowest. The eye test tells you completely otherwise with how the Senators played last night, and mostly in the second period, they were a complete mess. And Allmark, to his credit, maybe going to him, I didn't feel he was at fault really for any of the goals. No. And I thought he made a couple big saves in that second period just to keep them up. And then once Stutzle got that goal late in the second, it kind of got them to the finish line. In the third period, he didn't have to do much, but he made a lot of big saves in that second period, to really keep them in the game. And those are the saves they've been missing of late.
And it's set up for an amazing, I thought, a really solid closeout kind of third period.
Yeah.
You couldn't be more right, Alex. You're right on it. Sometimes it's not so much how many saves you make, it's when you make them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the key to Brodeur, Patrick Juan Brodeur in my lifetime, and I would say even Tommy Barrasso, who we had, some people say
Sens legend.
Pardon me?
Sens legend.
Yes, there you go. Some people say Eddie Belfour. Some people will tell you, other goalies, whomever their favorites might be. But I would say those guys in particular, Juan Brodeur, they were so good because of their timely saves. Like Patty was humble. I'm telling you, you go watch the tapes of the 1993 Stanley Cup playoffs, the whole playoff, not just the final, but the whole playoff. Those guys won 10 of 16 games in overtime.
Crazy.
10 of 16. Dude, you don't win 10 in a regular season in 82. They won 10 and 16 out of 16.
Patrick Waugh just being like, I have my 2 rings in my ear. We good.
For Jeremy, my buddy Jeremy Roenick.
Yeah.
Tell Jeremy, I don't hear him. I got my 2 Stanley Cup rings. Yeah. So that's a good little segue. When I worked with Jeremy, sometimes I would mess around with him and he'd get all mad and I'd say, I can't hear you. I have my 2 Stanley Cup rings. And he would get even more upset.
That's one of my favorite quotes. It's so good. It's like in the lore of like sport quotes, and you can just see the picture of him being like, I can't hear Jeremy with my 2. Yeah. But
you know what, I say one thing, Jeremy, of all the guys I've worked with, Jeremy Roenick might have been one of the best teammates. He was an amazing teammate to work with. I'm just telling you, he's passionate. He was fun. Sometimes he was off color, but more times than not, he was appropriate, and he was really loyal. Like Jeremy cared about everybody that worked there. I really enjoyed working with Jeremy. I really did.
I would have loved to cover him. It's this interesting thing when you get on the media and you just think of guys you'd love to cover, like Devin Cooley in Calgary, just making I'm just like texting Eric Francis all the time. Just like there's a picture of a woman was saying like, nothing matters, we all die. She wore it to like a Wranglers game in Calgary, like a t-shirt of his quote. And he's just, so although I will say Linus Ullmark always has a great quote too, mind of a goldfish, stuff like that.
Most of the Swedes do. They're really honest. I don't know if you've ever noticed that about the Swedish players.
Mm-hmm.
They'll say something and they're like, did he really just say that? He's like, we stunk, or I was poopy, to use another phrase.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, I didn't know that he had that in him.
Yeah. I do think there's a bigger picture. I do think when you're in your second language, like I speak French okay, but I'm not fluent. I can understand it, but I'm probably way more direct in my French than I am in my English because I don't really know how to formulate sentences as coherently and as concisely, right? So I think there's a little bit of that, but it
would have been good if you grew up in my house, because if you misspoke in French at the table, you got the freaking spoon right on the hand. Oh man,
that's what it felt like watching the Senators' last 3 games last night. So just another thing, like with this team right now, it feels like this next stretch, like they won last night. Are you like, what do you think they can glean from this moving forward? Like, what are the kind of the positives that they need to implement on this road trip in Minnesota and Winnipeg?
We defended better 5-on-5, so I think that's a good thing to bring into Minnesota because they're really good 5-on-5. The other thing is we did a good job getting to the front of the net to frustrate the opposition goalie. I think that's a big part of, especially going into Minnesota where they've got, outside of Spurgeon, that's a big defense. They're big guys. And then the third thing I think is just dealing with crowd noise. Columbus, they didn't give their crowd a lot to cheer about last night, but usually that's a hard place to play. I'm telling you, the building, they're on top of you. It's a hard place to play. Well, I think they take a lot out of that. They're going in some pretty hostile territory now. Minnesota's starting to feel it, obviously. They've played very well. Johnny Hines, nobody ever pays attention to Johnny Hines. Johnny Hines is a really good coach. Yeah. He left Nashville they've never been the same since he left Nashville. I'm just telling you, they have not. And he goes into Minnesota and he inherits a pretty tough situation and he turns it around pretty darn quick.
Yeah.
So he's a good coach. And Winnipeg's never an easy place to play, especially on the weekends.
Yeah.
You know, I think they play there Monday, right? I think
Monday, yeah.
Monday, yeah. So it's a little different on a Monday night in Winnipeg than it is on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that might be a positive for them. I'm just telling you, it's less rambunctious.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a bunch of different ways coaching there and broadcasting games there. The weekends are a little more nasty in Winnipeg than maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, for sure, in the peg. But I do think if they can just be a bit better defensively, like the one thing I feel good about, I know they didn't score a lot in the past couple of games before last night, but they were creating a lot of chances. Like it felt like and so with Tkachuk back, like you do feel offensively they've kind of turned around, and I think they can score a lot of goals. It's just how well do they defend? Does the PK, just for God's sakes, be more aggressive? That's the one thing with this team. If they had a good PK or even league average PK, they're probably at the top of the division.
So I know I'm pretty sure Nolan Baumgartner's running the penalty kill. I like Nolan. Nolan was a really good player. I don't think people realize Nolan was a good player, really good player. They got to get more aggressive. They're way too passive. Way too passive.
Yeah.
And you know what? I learned a lesson. I'll never forget this. It's a good story for everybody listening. We went into Buffalo when I was in Hartford, and they had Mogilny, LaFontaine, the late Dale Howardchuk, Dougie Bodger, and Himalev. That was their power play. I remember it like it was yesterday. This is like 1993, 94, right in there. It's a long time ago. And I said, you know what? We're going to throw a wrinkle at them. We usually play really aggressive in the odd, buzz off. We're getting to play passive. And we're just going to tell our goalie, you got to make the initial save.
Mm-hmm.
We went passive. And I think Sean Burke was our goalie that night. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Sean. And Pat LaFontaine and Mogilny and Howardchuk put on a passing display because we were not aggressive. And it's totally my fault. It was nobody else's fault. It was my fault. And we got lit up bad, like really bad. And I never forgot that. And I said, we're never doing that again. Ever. And so we're talking, like over 20 years ago. I never forgot that. And I watch all these passive teams. I'm like, oh, bring me in and let me show you the tape of what I did wrong all these years ago, because you'll never want to do that again. Passive penalty kill doesn't work. It does not in this game, not in today's game. No chance.
No, it doesn't. And it's really weird because like the Senators now have the 6th best power play, which is, it doesn't feel that way. But I think it's also just
look
the
at the
nature
ammunition they have though. Like I'm not surprised by the power play. And especially when Shane was there, like he's pretty darn effective, especially in the middle part of the ice. But Jake is if Tommy's doing the second power play and Jake's running the first power play, if you're Ottawa, there are not a lot of guys that can go 1-2 like that in the league. Like I know Lane Hudson's really good, but I don't think Dobson running the power play is better than Shabbat. I don't.
No,
I really don't. I'm being honest. Like they're a big rival. Toronto doesn't have anybody like that. No, if Toronto's power play was any good last night, they don't go to overtime with San Jose and lose.
I will say Shabbat being out has kind of reconfigured how I see him as a player, because he shows so much. He also gives back a lot, right? Like he's not Erik Karlsson in terms of talent, but there's a little bit of that where it's like risk reward, and he has become a bit better defensively. But and even on the power play, it's like sometimes it's like he holds on to the puck a bit too much. At the same time, I'd rather have him always have the puck and be good at just keeping the puck all the time on a power play at 5-on-5. And it really feels like this team they're really missing him, right? And you talk about slotting, like you put Clevin and Spence on the third pair again. I think that will really benefit them. I do think he's probably going to be back in the next, probably sometime before Christmas, if I have to guess.
Wow, that's good. That's good news.
So yeah. So if that can be the case, I think that's going to be really important for the Senators. Just like keep collecting points, like find ways to be better defensively. I think they need to be simple and not kind of overdo it. Like last night, where I thought at times they were trying to make too much, especially with the lead. So Thomas Chabot, hopefully he can come back, prove me wrong as a slight doubter. I still think he's a good player, but he's definitely shown himself to be a huge piece missing with his absence.
Yep. Well, I agree. I think he's an important part of the team. So my only message for you today for the Ottawa Senators, when you go into St. Paul and you play in St. Paul, there's only one place to go on an off day. You go to Tom Reed's, which is a former player in the National Hockey League. He's broadcasting games on the radio for Minnesota, but he's got a beautiful pub not far from the arena, not far from the hotels where the teams stay. And then for dinner, you go to the St. Paul Grill. There's not a lot of choices, but they're two elite choices. So if you got time in the afternoon, you go over to Tommy Reed's, and then for nighttime, you go over to the St. Paul Grill and you have a great steak. There you go.
I'm gonna send this to Ian Mendez just so everyone knows where to go.
And if they do, tell Ian if he does go to ask for Tom Reed and say that Pierre McGuire.
I will do that. I will do that. And then
I guarantee you, Tommy will show them a very good time.
There you go. There you go. And I hope that the Senators show their fans a really good time when they're in Minnesota.
Yes, that would be good too.
I hope it's a win. Pierre, thanks so much for taking the time and doing this. Excited to do this after the game tomorrow or sometime either Saturday or Sunday. And excited to see this team finally win. It's been a while. So
I think we should probably do it if we could. Saturday right after the game would probably be the most appropriate, which would be Austin. I think it's great.
Let's make it happen.
3:00 start, I think, right? 3:00 start?
Yeah, 2 p.m.
Oh, 2, is it 2 Eastern or 2
Eastern.
Central? Oh, is it?
Eastern. Yeah.
Even better.
Let's go. Let's do it.
The best part about afternoon games, and I'll leave you with this, you get to the next town sooner and you get to have a more civilized rest and a better dinner. So it's good.
There you go. There you go. It's always about the dinners. Tom Reed.
Dinner matters.
Shout out to him. Maybe we can get him to sponsor us when we expand to Minnesota. I'm kidding. Anyways, thanks, Fair, for taking the time and doing this. We'll talk soon, and it should be a good one.
Talk to you Saturday afternoon. Thanks a lot, Alex. Have a great weekend, everybody.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Sens Spotlight on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.